Greetings to all the lovely ladies and gentlemen out there. I'm your host, the ProGent, and check it out! I took a trip down to the beach recently and I found this weird conch shell. A pervy old guy told me it had some sort of mystical power if I blew into it. But I'm not sure if I should believe him. But, hey, worth a shot, right? Holy shit! Ishikawa Goemon, in many ways the Japanese equivalent of Robin Hood, a legendary thief from the Sengoku period who steals from the greedy to give to the needy. Unlike Robin Hood, Goemon was an actual person, although many of his exploits are exaggerated if not entirely fictional. Aside from his roguish adventures, the best known parts of Goemon's story is its gruesome end. After attempting to assassinate Toyotomi Hideyoshi and failing, Goemon was executed by being boiled alive. Yeesh. Goemon's legend has inspired many different fictional characters bearing his name across multiple different franchises. I talked about Goemon the 13th in my Lupin primer, and Persona 5's Yusuke uses Goemon's spirit as his persona, just to name two examples from franchises I like. However, there's a third example I can list, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Believe it or not, back in 1986, Konami was still a video game publisher. Surprising, I know. That year, they released a weird little game called Mr. Goemon in arcades. That game never made it to the West, but it did well enough to justify a couple of home console sequels, which in turn did well enough to justify a few more, and before you know it, a successful franchise known as Ganbare Goemon had arrived. The first Goemon game to be released in America was the series' first SNES installment, 1991's Legend of the Mystical Ninja. By the way, what you're looking at right now is the Japanese box art. This is the American box art. Gotta love 80s and 90s localization art. Like the historical Goemon, the story of the Ganbare Goemon series ends tragically. The last real game in the series was released in 2005 on the DS, followed by... you guessed it, a pair of pachinko machines. But let's not dwell on the death of yet another classic video game franchise that Konami has unceremoniously killed, just like Metal Gear and Castlevania and... Anyway, let's celebrate the good times. Specifically, let's go back to 1997, when Ganbare Goemon was adapted into a full 23-episode anime released in Western markets as Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Our protagonist is Tsukasa Ishikawa, a young boy whose life is turned upside down when the characters of his Goemon game start coming out of his TV. Apparently, a demon lord within the game world has found a way to send his henchmen into the real world, and it's up to Goemon and friends to combat them. Each episode follows a fairly standard formula. The villain, at first the cartoonish supervillain Seppuku Maru, replaced in later episodes by mad scientist Dr. Mudanashi and his gay stereotype sidekick Mr. Protein, summoning a monster to cause negative emotions in the populace of Japan. Goemon and his allies fight the monster, ultimately calling down a giant mech called Goemon Impact to finish it off, foiling the scheme and sending the villains blasting off again. At first glance, this seems like an absolutely mediocre series. In fact, let me just go over the 90s anime cliché checklist here. Major overarching villain who relies on a minion who constantly fails at their job? Check. Main characters who come from another world and need to learn how to be normal while saving said world? Check. Little kid who learns a lesson week to week based on the monster? Check. Transformation scene to get into the fight. Check. Hell, this show could almost be a remake of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. With all that said, I love this show. Yeah, it's cliché, but it's really well executed cliché. And the charm and comedy of the Goemon franchise shine through to elevate Legend of the Mystical Ninja above the mediocrity it could have been stuck in. I love the interactions between Goemon and his friends, which are consistently funny even now. I love the bad guys, like Seppuku Maru, whose emotions are at 100% intensity at all times, whether he's gloating or in despair. His name comes from his habit of threatening to kill himself every time he's defeated. There's even an insert sword here style line drawn on his stomach for this purpose. Yes, there are multiple suicide jokes in a kid's show. Japan has different ideas on what's appropriate for children, okay? So, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have a major bias here, because the Ganbare Goemon series is one of my all-time favorite video game franchises. In particular, the two N64 Goemon games are my favorites. These games mean the world to me. They're unapologetically weird and unapologetically Japanese, and they definitely stand out from a lot of other games of their time because of that. Traveling around Japan and just listening to music, or getting into a fight with a giant robot, and going through the iconic Goemon Impact summon sequence just... it gives me such a huge burst of happiness and nostalgia. A great game doesn't always mean a great show, as we've seen already this season. But in this case, the adaptation works perfectly. Legend of the Mystical Ninja captures the spirit of the Goemon franchise and translates it into a very funny anime. Seriously, one of the episodes is about the villain's evil plot to make people angry about bird poop. It's awesome. It's so... So far as I was able to find, the series isn't currently available for streaming. Well, legally anyway. But you can get a full series box set online for about $20. And let me tell you, I highly recommend it. On that note, it's about time to wrap up Season 2.0 of the ProGent show. We've taken a look at some of the best and worst adaptations of video games that the anime world has to offer. I hope you've all enjoyed this season, and I can't wait to show you what we've got in store for Season the 3rd. Until then, I've been the Professional Gentleman, and thank you for everything. Wow. It's a good thing it's the end of the season, because Impact left a huge hole in the roof. And I thought the bullet hole in the wall last season was bad. Thanks for watching. As always, a thank you to Andy Lita for keeping me looking so fine. Check out his work in the description below. If you enjoyed the show, please click on that thumbs up over there. It helps us out a lot. If you've got suggestions for something I can review in the future, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And of course, subscribe to my channel for future content.
Love ya, boy.